This update had it all. Drama, horror, a beetle dog, a bong, a blow... Oh, I didn't know we were getting down like that. Hey, it's Ali. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. Now today will be a short one, I promise. I swear. I really just needed to talk about the new Welcome Home update that just came out. Not only was it really funny, as always, scary as always, but I think it's also set the tone for where this project is gonna go going forward, and I really wanna talk about it. So if at any time you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe because I make videos like this all the time, and comment down below how you felt about this new update, about Frank, about any of the characters, any theories that you may have, and hey, let's jump into it. So as I predicted in my last video, this update is all about Frank. Very curiously, however, this update follows right after Julie's update, and we are starting to see somewhat of a timeline here. I will not be surprised if in the future from like Game Theory or another theory type channel, we see somebody talk about the timeline of Welcome Home, because if you really sit down, at least within the world of what's going on right now, within the characters like drama and stuff, you can kind of put together an entire timeline of what has happened so far. Now entering the page, we do see that Eddie has taken over as the main theming here. And in fact, I don't know if it was called out the last time, but it's definitely called out this time by W, the person putting together this website, that this update or this update of the website is all about Frank, right? So of course, with Frank being our resident bug expert, that means the website is full of bugs. Notably in the like homepage screen of him sitting in front of home, we see home. Home does not like bugs, which like me too, honey. Me too. Home does not like bugs. Home said, We actually get some really good, interesting characterization of Home, which we will talk about later. But like that was a really cute one. And then also the fact that some of the bugs that sit behind Eddie look like Julie and Frank. I mean, are they a gay couple if I don't get their names mixed up? The bugs that are sitting behind Frank look like Eddie and Julie. Oh my God. Just gay couple things, constantly getting your names mixed up. I don't know why that is like specifically a gay couple thing. I don't know. And of course, we are also met with Dog, the beetle, which some people thought was a roach. I also kind of thought it was a roach at first, but it's a beetle. I think. I'm pretty sure it's a beetle. If everything was to be assumed by the video with Home and Frank, again, which we'll get to, and this is the same bug, then this bug is a beetle and not a roach. Now, this little bug is named Dog. I named him Dog because, well, and this little beetle will follow you around from page to page, often moving around and stopping at very curious places. First though, before we get into any of that, we need to give it up for the Welcome Home team once again. Every single update, they are upping their game more and more and more. There's an entire credits page now that I highly suggest you go look at, because you never know, you might find your next favorite artist on that page. And also, if you really want to support them like monetarily and make sure they have the means to keep going, I know I sound like a show for them, but like they are all independent artists, and I want to make sure that they get their dues, right? They have a merch page, which they partnered with the same merch team that does Glitch Productions merch. So do with that as you will. Yes. And I believe they have a Black Friday. Again, not sponsored or anything like that. I just want to make sure that they're getting their dues. And in fact, the merch page will become very important later. So I think that's actually really cool that we go to the merch page. Oh God, I'm sorry. I'm just reminded of what that was. Anyway, just shout out to them. I'm so happy to see them like get more and more like comfortable within what this project is and how they want to show it off to people. So just like shout out to them. I want to make that like very clear before we keep going. Yes, support the team. The best place to start for this update would be the news category. Now in the news category, we see a nice little update for this month, and W talks about how procuring stuff has been going pretty slowly lately. And they talk about the reason is because the last thing that they got had a live animal in it. What? And they've been dealing with that. So the updates to the websites have been very infrequent. Okay, dude. Okay. No explanation. Just like, yeah, a live animal was sent to me in the mail. Do with that information as you will. We'll see more about that later. But also on this page, we see Bug jumping around next to Frank. Noticeably, I think I said this in my Julie video, but Julie and Frank specifically seem to be taking up more and more of like just the center stage here. And I don't know if it's just because something is going to happen with them maybe or what, but especially I know in my last video I talked about this idea of like forced heteronormativity with them and how all of the storybooks so far have been them two being like the main thing, like specifically Julie being the main character in a lot of the storybooks, and then Frank being usually like the love interest in all of the storybooks, right? And this kind of like really heavy push, like there's just so much content of like Frank and Julie that like obviously that force heteronormativity, but also just like where's everybody else, you know, where's Wally is also still missing from these places. Very interestingly, Dog Bug does this very interesting thing on the front homepage where if you follow him all the way down, it'll go to where Wally is supposed to be in the middle. And you can't click on it or anything, but it's very interesting that that's the place where they go to, right? Anyway, if you click on Frank on this homepage where Bug is dancing right next to them, right? If you click on Frank, it'll take you to this cute little crumpled up note. Frank loves to write notes, as we know. And in this note is basically saying that Wally, I don't know why you asked for this, but you can't find your phone, so I drew your phone number button for you. I don't know, it's really weird, but clicking on it leads us to this page. And this is actually the same like kind of ring page that we've gotten to before. And in this page before, Wally was talking about Julie and talking about all of these things with Julie, which I still have really yet to decode, and I have not really seen anybody truly deeply decode them yet. So let me know how you feel about like that whole, the way he talks in riddles and stuff like that. Like, let me know what your interpretation of that is down below. But he basically talks about how we played this game, you know, the whole philography game, for you to find Julie and to see what she's up to, what she's really up to. Now we're going to do the same with Frank. Are you ready? And then he basically gives you the instructions to follow your dog, which like, interesting. Oh, don't worry, I got words for this. I got words for Barnaby. I got words for him. But yeah, follow your dog. Basically, he'll show you the way. And we only know, this is why I named the bug dog, because the bug barks and moves around on the page, right? So it's just supposed to be like, I guess if you have completely no knowledge, it is just supposed to be your hint that that is what you are supposed to be doing on this page. It doesn't seem like Wally is, I think in my last video I said that Wally is talking to the this W person. It doesn't seem like that anymore. I feel like Wally would have mentioned like, oh, you are this person, right? Whereas like W seems to not want to be a part of, or is definitely ignoring all of the signs that Wally is trying to reach out through this code, right? They like every time something goes wrong on the website, they fix it in the next update, which is why you can't go back to some of the older puzzles, right? Because they've quote unquote fixed it because it's not supposed to be there. So they are actively ignoring, if they do even recognize it as being anything, they are actively ignoring Wally reaching out, right? So us, the audience, you know, there's that whole, like, I guess kind of breaking the fourth wall there, that Wally is trying to reach out to us, the audience. I just wanted to put that out there because I think I mentioned that in my last video. But yes, so now we know where we are supposed to go. And Julie, the fact that Julie is still a part of this makes sense because Frank is Julie's best friend. Eddie is also a part of this too because, well, we'll get to Eddie. We'll get to Eddie. But essentially, as you follow this bug around the website, you'll get to a bunch of very interesting bugs. When you click on the bugs, they go splat, and then a video will show up with some very interesting things at the top being like, oh, great job, specimen, and then a letter, which I don't know. I have theories, but let's just get into the facts of it all first. So there are 6 of these types of videos to find. I will leave like a Reddit or Tumblr link down below, or Twitter. No, there's a Twitter thread I remember seeing that has exactly how to get all of this down below. But I'm just gonna like lightly gloss over them and talk about the videos, so then we can talk about the theories. Yes. Okay, so the first one I found was Specimen L, and this is actually found on the stickers page right on top of home. You click, which is funny because again, home does not like bugs. You click on the bug, it smashes it, takes a piece of it and puts it in like this drawer. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, so, and then you get sent to a page where a video starts to play. And in this specific video, Eddie. If I say Eddie one more time when I mean Frank, I actually wrote it. I'm looking at my like script. I wrote home playing chess with Eddie. No, it's Frank. Oh my God, gay people. Anyway, home is playing chess with Frank and home is winning, which is like first time we ever get to really see home interact with like anybody else. Like I think he interacted with Julie. I believe home interacted with Julie at some point. But like in terms of like one-on-one, and especially with Wally not being there, this is kind of like the first time we get to see that, right? And in a non, you know, not threatening, but like in a non-commercial way, because I think we've seen them in like a story or so, like talk to the other like cast members, but within like just nobody's watching type way, and they're just living their day-to-day life, seeing Home interact with somebody else other than Wally in a positive way, completely new, which completely like retreads what I'm like thinking about Home being like, whether Home is evil, not evil, yada yada yada. At this point, I don't think Home is evil. I don't think Wally is evil either. I think I've said that in my last video. I don't think anybody's evil. I think the evil comes from the big giant corporation, but again, we'll get to that. I have more evidence for that later. But Home is playing chess with Frank, and Frank and Home are communicating with each other, right? And we're seeing this through the eyes of something. We don't know what. Home starts to freak out, and Frank's like, what's going on, dude? Turns out there's a bug. It's a bug. There's a bug on Home. Home does not like bugs. Home said, which is so funny because you're a house. You're a house. But like, hey, I don't like bugs either. So, you know, whatever. Frank takes the bugs because Frank's really good with bugs. Takes the bug and is like, oh, little buddy. And for some reason, I don't know why, I think it's this bug. I think it's this bug, this little beetle, because it's very friendly towards Frank. Like, it just seems to be. Yeah, anyway. So Frank is talking to Home, trying to calm Home down. And then out of nowhere, Wally shows up. Wally and his very like kind of deadpan like smile that he has. And he's, oh, also another thing I almost forgot, in the ring 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 video, Wally talks about like smiling, and talks about how all a puppet can do is smile, which I think just more has to do with the hiding of emotions and hiding of real emotions, and what it means to like have real emotions as a puppet, because you are meant to be puppeted and all that stuff, which I'm sure like is like a big overarching theme of this story, right? But anyway, back to the video. So Wally is saying, hey, you're talking to Home? And Frank is like, yeah, I talk to Home all the time. And then Frank realizes, oh, you can't understand Home. And then instead of Wally being like, yes, I can't understand Home, Wally says, no, Home does not talk. And I think that just in that moment, that I think it could be brushed off as a moment of like, oh, Wally doesn't understand that Home doesn't talk in the same way that we talk, because that's exactly what Frank says afterwards. Like, oh, no, he doesn't talk in the same way we talk, but Home talks and differently. I like taught Morse code basically to Home. Home does all these like creaking sounds and stuff like that, clearly trying to communicate. So the fact that like Wally would say Home does not talk, you know, but I think it's just more of like in the lines of like Home does not talk in the way that we see it, right? So we get confirmation here that not only did Wally not understand Home at first, which I think we all thought like Home was possessing Wally was possessing Home and Wally were like this, but it seems more like that Wally and Home are just like, you know, they're there together, but they don't really know that much about each other. Maybe they get closer later, but for now, it's like all that time that we do see Home and Wally talking to us, I think is like later on, right? Later on, again, now we can like kind of sort of put a timeline together. Basically, anytime that Wally can understand Home, we know that it is after whatever the fuck is going on now with Frank, right? So Frank is basically telling Wally that like, yeah, I taught him Morse code. I can teach you Morse code as well. I don't know why I keep gendering the house. I don't think the house has a gender. And actually in the transcript of the video, you can see the Morse code and translate it yourself. And it sounds like Home is making like a proper conversation. I don't think there's anything like secretive there. It's just Home like having an actual conversation, which I think is really cool. And I hope that is like going forward, we will see that anytime Home speaks, it will be in Morse code that we can then decode, right? Wally basically is like, yeah, I would love that, which is, it turns into a very wholesome moment, a moment that you thought was going to be like kind of scary, because again, Wally's just staring there very deadpan with his eyes kind of going around and around. And it's very cute though, because in the end he's just asking like, hey, well, Frank, can you like teach me how to speak to Home and yada yada yada. So it's very sweet. Like again, this idea that like Wally's just a little autistic guy. Oh, speaking of, he fell over. Here, there we go. Yeah. There we go. But yeah, Wally's just this little autistic guy. He, you know, he doesn't speak in the same way you and I speak, but that doesn't mean that he's evil, right? Which I think is kind of the point. I think they're kind of leaning into that idea that like, just because he's a little unsettling and doesn't speak in the same way you and I speak, does not mean that Wally isn't like, that Wally is evil or something like that, you know? Okay, so that's the first video. After you finish all the videos, if you click on the drawer again, you will get that little piece of whatever bug that you ripped off, right? Second one is Specimen P, which is where Frank goes to speak to Poppy. Assumedly, this is after Julie's freak out, I want to say, quote unquote, maybe not, I don't know. Definitely after home warming. warming. Okay. Anyway, interestingly enough, when Frank goes from Julie's house to Poppy's house, you can see the foreground a little bit and it looks like a set. You can see lights strung up. You can see cables kind of like being unplugged. So it looks like a set after dark, which is interesting because he notes that it's very cold. And I don't know if that like is kind of like a symbolic thing of meaning the set is off. And when the set is off, it's nighttime and maybe it's colder, yada, yada, yada. They mention seasons, which is very interesting. They also mention a curfew. They mention a lot of very interesting things in this conversation that Frank has with Poppy. This conversation is so fucking interesting. I don't think it has much bearing on the lore of everything. It helps put together, again, this timeline, but I don't think it has a lot of bearing on the lore. So Eddie is talking to Poppy and is just like, you know, I gave the quilt that this ring keeps falling off. I gave the quilt that you made to Julie. I'm sure she'll appreciate it when she wakes up, which implies that she is asleep. Don't know if she's like, you know, forever asleep or if she's just asleep for the night or like whatever. Poppy offers Eddie, Jesus, take a shot every time I mistake Frank for Eddie. You will be dead by the end of this. Anyway, Eddie, oh my God. Poppy offers Frank some tea, specifically lavender tea. Don't piss me off. Don't piss me off. I immediately was like, lavender tea? Is it because he's gay? Little did I know. Little did I fucking know. Anyway, so she offers him some tea and he's like, yeah, I'll take some tea. And she's like, oh, it's not caffeinated though. Yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. And then she puts a fucking bong on the table. What? And then Frank goes, so you're trying to lay me out on my ass? Damn. We already heard cursing, I think for the first time with Julie in the last like update. Like she like kind of broke character and like was cursing and really upset, right? And now Frank and Poppy together getting high? Okay. Well, it seems like Poppy is the one getting high, which makes sense. She's the most anxiety ridden out of all of us. Okay, I'm not gonna say I wish weed worked for me. I've tried weed before. Yeah, I do curse a little. That's what that sounded like just now. I have tried weed before though, because I am also a very anxious mess of a person, and it did nothing but make it worse, which is very funny. I'm glad for Poppy it works for her though. I'm glad it works for you, girl, because like, Lord knows, she has her cabinets chained up. She's afraid of the kettle going off. And assumedly, we can assume here, she still hasn't left her house. Now, they do call back to the Poppy update, which was like the update before Julie, where she got trapped inside of her home and they boarded that up and forgot about her, which is very, very important for later. Turns out none of that was real. Turns out that was all like in her head and maybe a part of like an anxiety attack or something. And she was basically freaking out. And she mentions a person named Ron. Who the fuck is Ron? And also, I don't think this is the first time he'll be mentioned in this update, though this is the only time I remember him being mentioned. Who's Ron? But it also is leading to the theory of them being cast members or workers on this crew. They mention work multiple times. In the video that Frank has with Julie, he also mentions work being like getting to her and like this all being work and stress and yada, yada, yada. So them all being cast members are part of a show, but maybe like, you know, like puppets, like, you know, the Muppets, like the Muppets know they're on a show, right? It's not like, oh, we're in the Muppet world and the Muppets only know the Muppet world. It's like, no, the Muppets are cast members, celebrities on a show, right? So it's kind of like that to me, at least, like so far, it seems like they seem to know they're on a show. So Ron may be like a cast member or something like outside of just the main core cast of puppets, right? Okay, I got so caught up in the bong of it all, the hilarity of it all, that I forgot to do some actual analysis. So mainly I just wanted to talk about the setting that Welcome Home occupies, just based off of toys and based off of the clothing and the colors. We could pretty rightly assume that it's within the 70s, 80s, like TV show. I think there was a year at some point on the page. I'll like look that up later, but we can probably safely assume the 70s. And what was going on in the 70s, very much so hippie culture was like at its peak during this time, right? Which of course, you know, means like weed and drug use and things like that, but also censorship and anti-war sentiment, etc., etc. And so I just want to keep that in mind as we go on. It seems like we're leaning a lot more heavy into, I guess, kind of real world issues of that day. I would not be surprised if we get like something along the lines of like real life happenings, what was going on in like the 70s, like during this time, right? So Poppy being on weed is not odd. It just is the first time we're seeing something like this. So it was like a shock at first, but it's also just not odd. She is an actor in the 70s who it is under a lot of stress and anxiety. Her turning to weed, and we will see later, other drugs, makes sense. Anyway. She also speaks about losing her head, which is imagery that a lot of people, a lot of fan artists, just a lot of people talk about, because she needs a human person, I think, to like puppet her from the inside, like Big Bird. So her head comes off. And so the idea of her losing her head, it's very creepy and gory if you really think about it, because she is like her own person on top of needing a human puppet to operate her, which is very interesting, because if you look at all the like descriptions of all of the members on the like neighborhood webpage, they talk about human operators, right? And so it's weird that we have these characters who are their own characters but still need human operators, and it's like, how the fuck does that work? Like, is it like you're just saying they need human operators but really they are their own person? But that also leads to the fact, again, I think I talked about in my Poppy, I didn't make a video about Poppy, but I talked about it in my live stream that I did, that the idea that like she might be the first to go, the first to be let go or forgotten about and boarded up and forgotten about, because she is so difficult to handle, like just because she's so big, right? And also her personality and yada yada yada, blah 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 blah. I talked about how that's possibly ableism and homophobia and all of it, yada yada. And so that's basically what we learned from that video. Poppy is also just kind of like, everything's fine, we just need to move on. And Frank is like, are you sure? And she's just like, yeah, it has to be. And that's kind of the end of the video. So also we know now that Frank, he's the town gossip. Everybody goes to Frank. Frank seems to be a friend to all. Everybody kind of loves Frank. And I made a Tumblr post about it, and I will say it again. So what I'm hearing is Frank keeps this fucking town together, which it seems like that is true. Like he's the town glue that's keeping everything together, which of course, you know, that puts a lot of weight on his shoulders and stuff like that. On to the next video. So the next video is Specimen R. We find this video on the philography page if you skip to the board game and click right in the middle. So inside of this video, it's a dragonfly, and you take the dragonfly's body. My friend noticed that it looked like a scythe, and they actually mistaked it as a scythe the first go around, because like we were talking over Discord about it and we weren't really showing pictures to each other. And so they've being like, oh yeah, the little scythe thing. And I was like, what scythe thing? Did I miss something? And they were like, is it a hammer? And I was like, what? And then they were like, yeah, you go on the philography page, click on the thing and the thing and the thing. I was like, oh, the dragonfly body. But the dragonfly body does indeed look like a scythe. So interestingly enough, this video starts off with a picture of the Buggle, which the Buggle was a thing that we saw in the last update with Julie, as well as this like little toy thing. And then in this update, it is also going to be an important part of Away from Prying Eyes. So anytime we see this thing now, know that we need to pay attention to it. Know that we need to pay attention to it, because it's a weird little wild animal thing, apparently. We'll get to all of that. So anyway, Frank and Julie are having this conversation where Julie has shown him the flower that has been completely closed up. And that is the confirmation that we need, that this is post Julie's like kind of mental breakdown that she has, right? Because or it might also be happening at the same time, like roughly at the same time. Julie is talking about how this flower won't open, but she hears it calling to her, and she's really, really freaking out about it. And Frank is trying to get her to calm down. He's also just like, you know, what will people think if you say this, blah, 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 blah. Like, because she's speaking like crazy, like. And then we have to get into what time period this is all supposed to be in, like low-key, like I think like 70s, 80s-ish like era. And so her getting caught specifically for like saying kind of nonsense or sounding crazy is very interesting, that that's something that people would like look at you really weirdly for, and possibly, in my opinion, maybe kick her off the show for, which is like, I guess like the worst thing that can happen. And like kicking off the show probably means like, you know, dead. So I find that very interesting. And then so Frank is just like, we'll deal with it. I'll deal with it. And he offers to basically dig it up, and he's like, we're just gonna dig it up, it's gonna rot away, and you won't have to deal with it ever again. And so he digs it up for her, and she's just like, yeah, I don't want to see this, like, no, absolutely not. Notably, again, this is when they mention work has been getting to her head again, and also at the same time, the clock tower curfew. So I think this was mentioned either last update or last update, but there being a curfew in the first place. Oh, no, that was in the Eddie update, I think, because Eddie was out past curfew and he was like, I see something beyond the woods or some shit like that. So the fact that there is an update, very interesting. Also, the wording that Frank uses is like, you won't have to carry this anymore. We'll just bury it and get rid of it and you won't have to carry it, which like is very interesting wording. Could use to be talking about mental health, or the fact I also suspect like Julie may be gay or something like that. At the very least, it seems to be a metaphor for something that you don't want to show the general public, especially during during this time of the 70s and 80s, and why Frank and Julie would be so frantic about getting rid of it. And we'll see more of this later with Frank's own personal video in the end.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
Oh, Tenna. Oh, Spampton. Oh, Naruto. Oh, Sasuke. I'll never leave you again. Ah. Oh, man. Is there anybody for me? Possibly. Oh. Don't worry, man. Turn that frown upside down. Oh my god. Sonic the Werehog from the hit 2008 game Sonic Unleashed? Is that you? Yeah, man. Don't worry. There's plenty of fish in the sea. I'm sure there will be somebody for you. Oh, man. Thank you, Sonic. I mean, you would want to? No, I'm a lone wolf. Or, should I say, a lone hedgehog. Wow.
So, I just want to let you know, stickers are up in my store. This is the last restock of the year. Just ignore it that happened. But if you want to get in on the action, my stickers are restocked for one last time for the end of the year. They will not be restocked until the new year. And even then, I don't know when the next time they'll be restocked, honest to God. So come get your stickers now. There's also a winter sale going on. Yeah, that's right. We're talking Black Friday, baby. There is a 20% off coupon you can use right now in the store. We call that Holiday Yapper. Yes, 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 yes. And if you join my Patreon right now, you get early access to videos, early access to forums, access to the Discord, and an extra 5% off on top of that 20% off in the store. Yes, sir. Also, Patreon is also on sale, half off for the rest of the year. So if you wanted to join the Discord or get early access to forums or access to my vlogs a month early, it's all on sale right now for half off till the end of the year. Thank you so much for selling out these stickers in the past, and I have a new sticker up from my Sonic Unleashed video that you can get right now. So if any of that sounds cool to you, go ahead down in the description, find my store, find my Patreon, everything like that, and have a happy and safe holidays. Bye. Next video, we have Specimen E for Eddie. Oh, okay. So this is right during home warming. You know, when Eddie goes through that whole derealization thing, he just like is looking at the pee. He's looking at the pee and he's like, I gotta go. I got to leave. So he gets up to leave. This is right when he's about to get up to leave, and Frank like stops him and he's like, is everything okay? This picks up right after that. So again, this idea that there is a timeline like happening. It's like a series of events that are happening to Frank. We're seeing like through Frank's like eyes at this point, which I think is very interesting that he knows everything and everyone in this town, not in like a malicious way, but in like a I take care of this town type of way, right? And so Eddie's like, I gotta go. I gotta go. I'm sorry. I gotta go. So he gets up, he frantically leaves, and like Frank is trying to stop him. He looks back at Frank. Frank is standing there, and I'm just like, oh my God, gay people. and then Eddie leaves. He leaves through this door that is just a door, and it's pitch dark, very scary. And I have like, I think what that is in a second. So then Frank is about to go after him. Frank is literally just about to go after him. He's like, oh, okay, I guess we're going this way then. Oh, that's my man right there. I guess that's where I'm going. So Frank is about to go, and he gets stopped by Julie. And he's like, oh, what are you doing, silly? The party's over here. Don't leave. And she's just like, you know, got the smile on her face. So throughout all of the videos, Frank has this internal dialogue going. And very notably, the dialogue is noted with a turn of like a dial, right? And sounding like a radio. And we only know that this sounds like a radio because Wally does the exact same thing in the Ring 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 video. So in that video, Wally tunes like the dial of a radio, and it sounds exactly the same as Frank's inner thoughts. So very interesting there. Very interesting like connections there. What the fuck is going on over there? But Frank is having this internal dialogue about like just things that are going on, and he's worried about people and himself and yada yada yada. So in this video, he's saying like Julie was the one who stopped me, but that doesn't make sense. Why would she say something like that? Yada yada yada. He looks up again, and it's Wally, and he's just like, why would Wally do this? Like, wait a minute, wasn't it Julie? She's so strong though. Wally isn't that strong, yada, yada, yada. If you like speed up his audio as well, like just to 2x speed, he does sound like out of breath when he's talking. Like there's a lot of like labored breathing here. Like talking is very hard for him to do, which is, I think, just a characterization of Wally, but I find that very interesting nonetheless. But Frank is low-key freaking out because he's just like, no, I gotta go. And he's like, well, why do you have to leave? Like, why are you leaving? Blah, blah, blah. And he's just like, there's nothing else for me here. Very important wording again. Why, like that type of wording is so weird to use, to be like, there's nothing else for me here. And then Frank like yanks his hand out of Wally's and looks back and realizes there's nobody there. And he realizes, oh, it was me, which like I take to mean like I was holding myself back here. And again, this idea that there's nothing left for you here after Eddie leaves. Right, okay. Okay. Anyway, he walks out into the void and falls. And then like the screen cuts to black. And I think there's a weird sound that plays after that one. I'm not sure. But this is very interesting. I take this to be the set. So walking off the set, because everything, if you've ever been on a set, like, or on stage or something like that, when the lights are shining down on your face, you cannot see the crowd. The crowd is like completely black, depending on how bright the lights are, but you can't really see the crowd. You can't really see the crowd out there. So this idea that there's just like pitch black, like otherness out there, I think is just the rest of the set, right? Like walking off the set into like the cameras and stuff like that, walking away from this, right? Whether Eddie is like actively walking away from whatever this is, this project, whatever, the show, whatever, he's leaving, right? And he's freaking out for, again, some reason. I don't exactly know what that reason is. There's plenty of theories about it. But yeah, just kind of this derealization, and Frank goes in after him, which, gotta fucking love gay people. Anyway, oh, I wrote down in my notes that the break sounded, the sound at the end sounded like a break, like something broke. Interesting. I wonder what that could have been. Anyway, it might be Frank, because Frank's head comes off, which we'll get to later. All right, couple more videos left. We have Specimen A. I forgot to mention Specimen E you find in home when you click on, I don't know if that's a bug or makeup, I don't know what it is, but it's in the corner outside of the like kind of neighborhood area. You click on that, that's how you find Specimen E. Specimen A is honestly very interesting to get. You can find it very, very accidentally. So if you click on the neighborhood and you just browse through the neighborhood, yada, 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 the fact that like there's a new sentence, I think it was in the Poppy update, the Julie update, about Julie and Eddie possibly being an item. Awesome. That was not there before. Awesome. But if you click around and then try to click on the little home icon at the top of the page to go back to what would usually take you to the home page, it actually takes you to a page called Our Home. It's called Our Home, and you're inside of Julie's house. So you can click around. This is also where the music has completely changed. There's actually no music on most of the web pages, but now we have music. So it's just like really droning, like drum beat in the background with like some other like miscellaneous sounds. It's actually really fucking weird and creepy. Obviously everything's really dark and scary. This house has been torn to bits. If you click on the window, you can see Julie's reflection, and she's looking very, very upset. You can probably tell that she's been looking at probably the flower that has been like standing there like in the field, in the forest. Is it in the forest? I think it's in the forest. The flower that has not bloomed yet. You can probably see that she has seen it from her window, and she's been like looking at that, right? There's a picture of Frank, a picture of her and her family. There is a package, which is very interesting because it's like, who gave you the package? What's in the package? Okay. And then there's a mirror with flowers from Frank. There's a message in her drawer. If you click on the mirror, I almost forgot. If you click on the mirror, you can see Wally in the background, like the silhouette of Wally. Okay. Awesome. Amazing. Awesome. Love that. Like, why is he there? Like, every time I'm like, Wally's not evil, guys. He's not doing anything nefarious. And then he shows up where he's not supposed to be, in nefarious places. Wally, what's up, man? Anyway, and then if you click on the drawer on the vanity, if you click on the phone plays garbage noise. Now, it's not called garbage noise. That's just what I call it. It's just like a very weird like sound on there. And we see in one of the messages that Frank sends to Julie that, hey, I've been trying to reach you by your phone and you're not answering your phone. And now we see, because the phone's off the hook, spouting garbage noise. Anyway, so if you click on the drawer on her vanity, you will open it to find a bunch of dirt, a crumpled up note, and a spoon. Now, people nice, good, wholesome people out there were like, yeah, this spoon looks like maybe she was digging dirt and or she's eating dirt or whatever. And I was like, that spoon looks burnt. Like, if you've ever burned a spoon before, which I have, like, if you ever hold a spoon above fire, which you would do if you're cooking heroin. I'm not saying, but after like, this is the 70s and the 80s, okay? I'm not saying that she's on fucking heroin. But after the whole thing with the bong, nothing is off the table. Okay, we'll see one more crazy thing that makes it go, nothing is off the table. Okay, so like, but the spoon is dirty. It looks like it's burnt because, again, if you've ever burnt the underside of a spoon, and don't ask me why I know what the burnt side of a spoon looks like. Don't ask me. But that's kind of what it fucking looks like. If you just look up like heroin spoon, that's what it fucking looks like. Anyway, and this crumpled up note is the important part. So you click on the note. Frank is talking about how hard it's been to get to Julie. He hopes that she's okay, yada, yada, yada. And at the end of the note, there is another bug that you can crush and take the wings off of. Once you take the wings off of that, it'll take you to a video. And this video is pretty much saying, hey, have you collected all of the pieces yet? Once you have, come back here and you'll get a trophy. What do you mean by that? So all of that said, we now have 5 letters. There is one more letter to get. If you go on the storybook page, little dog bug over here will be seen digging on top of the Sweet Briar Rose story. And there are 2 other stories you can read too. They're not largely important to the lore, I don't think. At least I don't see anybody talking about them. I listen to them. They're very funny and cute for the sake of, like, you know, actually, you know, characterization, stuff like that. Like, it's very funny and cute, and I hope they keep doing those stories, but I do not think they have any bearance on the overall lore. Watch me be completely wrong. But, like, if they do, let me know down in the comments, because I kind of just brushed over them. But anyway, so the Sweet Briar Rose connection. We're gonna have to dig for this one. Quite literally, you have to go into the source code of the website. In the source code of the website, if you scroll down to where Sweet Briar Rose like starts, at the top of that will be a riddle. So the riddle goes, I know something you don't know. It's 2 words long. The first word is sweet. The second word is a flower. Intertwined, they call to mind. The face of a neighbor he pretends not to know. Okay, so you're like, all right, the first word is sweet. The second word is a flower. We've seen flowers in the philography section, yada, yada, yada. And then the last part is a face of a neighbor he pretends not to know. And you're like, the fuck does that mean, right? The fuck does that mean? And since this update has to do with Frank, we can only assume Eddie. And so I don't know how you would then get to the merch page from here, but if you go to the merch page and you scroll all the way down to the pins and you get to Eddie's pen has lavender on it. Eddie's pen has lavender on it. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Lavender. Yeah. Right. Lavender. If you don't know, lavender is a flower that is often used in LGBT history. There's things like lavender marriages, etc., etc. It's just one of those, like, not code phrases, I guess, to mean that, like, somebody is gay, you know. There's more history to it. I'll put it up on screen. But okay, hi, hello. I left this off for editing me to do, and we're here to do it. So we're going to take a little history lesson, okay? A little history lesson real quick. So this is an article by CNN from 2020, June 4th, 2020, how lavender became a symbol of LGBTQ resistance. I will link it down in the description, of course, but essentially they talk about how lavender, like purple fabrics, just in general, you know how like it is. Everything starts with the rich. Hello, Silver. You want to talk about gay people? Let's talk about gay people. How like any type of color like fabric started out with like rich people, and so anybody who was like just rich was wearing like color fabrics. He's homophobic. And then from there a movement started to rise, an art movement called aestheticism, which pretty much is just art for art's sake, meaning we're wearing things because they're pretty, not necessarily because they have some deep philosophical meaning to it, you know, aestheticism on the rise. However, as we can see here, like lavender is always, because it's more of a soft feminine color, but men were still wearing it, it can be started to be considered like, you know, with homosexuality. And where there is LGBT history, there will always be Oscar fucking Wilde. So as newspapers, and I'm guessing the government, because this all is all trickled down from there, started to call aestheticism very effeminate. Basically, if you want to dress good for the sake of dressing good and not like utilitarian or whatever the fuck, guess what? You're a woman and you like womanly things, you're very effeminate, and that makes you gay. So, and of course Oscar Wilde got thrown in there of like talking about his like purple hour spent with rent boys and moral scandals and homoerotic themes in The Picture of Dorian Gray. If there's gonna be gay history, Oscar Wilde has to be there. So this is like the big heavy push to specifically lavender as a color, and honestly any other like pastel colors being seen as effeminate and then pushed towards being like gay, right? So fast forward in America, we have this very gay ass streak of lavender in spa soft as May violets by the person who did Abraham Lincoln's biography, talking about Abraham Lincoln's like one of his friends and the friendship he had with somebody. Okay. Okay. But as time went on, you know, and discrimination in America started to become like basically legalized to discriminate against somebody based off of course, race and color, but also against sexuality within the workplace. Lavender was used as kind of like this derogatory term to like refer to somebody as like gay, to be like, oh, you have a touch of lavender in you and stuff like that. Of course, then there were protests in 1969. Which if you remember from earlier when I talked about the year of when Welcome Home takes place, started in 1969. What happened in 1969? There was lots of protests, lots of like gay protests about gay rights. One of those being the Stonewall riots, and then one of those being like this lavender march the months after the Stonewall riots. Look, I'm good at history. I'm good at remembering events and why things happen and, you know, key characters and figures and blah, blah, blah. But if you tell me to name the year like Franz Ferdinand was fucking assassinated, I can't help you. I can't help you. So it did not click in my head that 1969 was the year of the Stonewall riots. It all makes sense now. It all fucking makes sense now. Anyway, so lavender being like a very huge color, especially used with Eddie in this case, and like again going back to the whole censorship of it all. Guys. Anyway, so this is a really good article and it keeps going about lavender throughout the years and gay people, yada yada yada. So I will leave this in the description below, but like thanks for coming on this little history lesson with me. Yeah. Jesus fucking Christ, guys. Jesus Christ. Anyway, so the webpage is welcomehomerestorationproject.net/sweet lavender. So the video we get is very interesting. Number one, here's Eddie. This is the first time we've seen Eddie in a while. He's in the storybooks for this update, but this is the first time we've seen Eddie in a little bit like outside of like the actual promotional material for the show, like just living his life, right? So, hi Eddie, we haven't seen you in a while, and he's working for Sally as like his assistant. And like he is asking Sally before Frank's like inner voice takes over. He's asking Sally if she's had a time to look at his like scripts that he has, his ideas. So like it's he's no longer the mailman. Now, granted, you can have more than one job, but like remember the whole point of Eddie's update was that he was starting to feel like outdated, or like he was gonna get not replaced, but like he was no longer needed. Like his usefulness was no longer needed. And so I can see a world where they kind of move him from being the mailman to something else, that being Sally's assistant, which we all talked about Sally. We've talked about Sally before and how Sally seemingly is like taking over this, like trying to find as much usefulness within this world as much as possible by taking over like the narrator spots and becoming the director of all these plays and stuff like that. And you can actually see in the storybooks, like I said, they weren't lore relevant. You can actually see in these storybooks that she is dragging everyone along into these plays. Frank is very also like anything that Sally wants, I guess. Sally, you know, it's all Sally's production, so whatever. And he doesn't really seem to be happy about that. He also doesn't seem to be very happy about Barnaby either, because he's just like, I'm glad I'm not paired up with Barnaby, because Barnaby just, you know, does whatever he wants and always gets his way. Sir? Again, the wording of everything has been so interesting in this update. But yeah, anyway, so then Eddie comes over to Frank and is like, hi, Mr. Frankley, can I adjust your stuff for you, like your costume? And he's just like, sure, whatever, to Sally's liking, whatever. And he's just like, cool, thanks for being a peach. And then and what I can only say in the, he goes down on him and fixes his costume, and he's just like, oh yeah, I never know with my seam allowance, which is also just like, Eddie sews? Okay, all right. And then it all gets drowned out by Frank's inner voice, And then Eddie stands up. And, you know, people were like, oh my God, did he just give him a blowjob? Because the way that some of the like pictures look in this moment, one of them looks like this down up, like down angle looking at like Eddie is here and I'm here like looking down on Eddie. And it's a very suggestive like situation to be put in, like picture to be put in. It definitely is. But I just brushed it off. I just brushed it off at first because I was like, oh, okay, that's odd, but that's not like too weird, whatever. Like I doubt it was actually a blowjob. And then someone pointed out the way that he looks when he stands back up, and also what he like his like what he does with his hands, like what, and he looks very disheveled and sweaty when he stands back up. Why would you look like you were down there for like 5 seconds? Like, why the fuck would you look like that? You know? And so now, after the bong and the heroin spoon, he might have just given him a blowjob. Which I talk about the like setting the tone for the rest of the like thing. We're dealing with actors here. Like we're dealing with actors who are like, I guess like, I don't want to say celebrities, but they kind of were in the like 70s like era. And I think that's very interesting. Very interesting. I'm all down for it, of course. But I think that's very interesting. There is also a warning, one of the very first warnings on the like welcome home restorationproject.net page, their like homepage. And it says, warning for adult imagery, suggestive content. Okay. Both in saying it and in visual. Yeah. I didn't know we were getting down like that. Okay. Anyway, it doesn't even matter because once he leaves, Frankie gets upset because he's just like, who does he think he is? How can he like talk to me like he doesn't even remember who I am? How can he not remember? Yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. Does he not remember? And then he's going on stage to like do his lines. And this is in the Sweetbriar Rose like storybook. He's doing his like lines. And then he gets to Julie, who's on there, and it flashes for a second because she's like asleep and he has to kiss her to wake her up. And it flashes Eddie for a second, just in case you didn't think that was gay. It flashes Eddie for a second, you know, the person he's supposed to kiss. And then Julie does the thing where she leaps up. I remember mentioning in my last video about Poppy that she may have like done that on purpose so she didn't have to kiss Frank. And I do think that is still true, but it also seems like Frank almost forgot his lines. And to save him from that, because he was like freezing up, Julie pops up and like hugs him. Best friends for life. That's some best fucking friends right there. And yeah, that was the end of the video. Wow, what a fucking video. What a video. So the whole thing about him not remembering, there could be two different like things for that. In the source code, you know, it says the face of a neighbor he pretends not to know. The question is who's doing the pretending? It like, because it's like the face of a neighbor he pretends not to know. I guess we're talking about like Eddie in this place, but we're talking about the face of a neighbor he pretends not to know. The subject would be Frank. Frank is the subject. And then who he pretends not to know would be Eddie. You know, like grammar there is like very interesting, like put there. And it's like, it could be either way around. And the reason why I say that is in our last video, which is the parcel video. So if you put all of the letters together and you scramble them around to get a word, you get the word parcel. So if you go back to the Our Home page and you type in restorationproject.net/ourhome/parcel, you get this video. In this video, we are met with more radio noise, right? And we get Frank's inner thoughts. He looks at the shed. We see like the fact that he has wrapped this flower thing up in a blanket that looks suspiciously like a body. It's very weird because the bulb is like bulb shaped. So like why when you wrap it in a blanket does it suddenly look like very elongated, almost like a body? That was weird. So he leaves it in his shed. The point of this all though is that Frank is starting to become paranoid. He doubts his own memory if he can even remember if he put something in there or not, or if somebody took it or not. He tries to like journal because it'll help him out. He opens his journal, turns out it's blank, and he says, don't you remember? You lost your journal. You lost your field journal. You can't even remember that butterfly. Very important. We'll get to that later. He doesn't remember a very specific butterfly that he saw, and he had to get a new field note. Howdy jeered at him, which is kind of crazy. Howdy, let's calm down, Howdy. Also, Howdy wasn't really in this update, which he was in the storybooks, but he hasn't really been in any of the updates really, like outside of like the promotional material, like talking to him outside of that. It doesn't really seem to be a thing. Anyway, and basically Frank is like kind of slipping into like an anxiety or a panic attack or something where he's just like, don't lose your head. He kind of loses his head, which again, if we're talking about memory loss here, this idea that he's losing his head, much like Poppy, but in this case, his head can come off. That is a thing that they do. So let's say if he knows too much about something, they could kind of just switch off his head. I'm just saying. He also mentions, again, talking about wording, that you'll lose this field journal too, is what he says. And when it's gone, they will throw it away. No, when you're gone, they will just throw it away just like you, which again is to this notion that eventually all of these people are disposable and they can just be thrown out and like discarded when they are no longer useful, right? So again, to that idea that is there, right? And that's kind of what everyone is kind of loosely afraid of, right? And notably in this, he never writes anything down. You would think that if he wrote something down, it would actually kind of be a failsafe, because if he writes something down and then he forgets, well, then you've written something down. But notably, again, he says that his diaries all go missing. So he's not really remembering anything, and he's trying to calm himself down, but he's getting like worse and worse and worse. And then he mentions Barnaby again. And how like, oh, I bet it was Barnaby. Barnaby's always playing pranks on me. He just comes into my house. Is he in my house right now? What do you mean Barnaby just comes into your house? What? Again, I mentioned in my last video, I like watched my last video very recently yesterday in preparation for this video, and in it I said that Barnaby was a guard dog. That's how I am being proven right every single fucking day with this fucker. So yeah, he might be like a watchdog, I think is a better term for the word. He's a watchdog is what you're saying. You're saying to me that he's a watchdog. Right, okay. Because he was very like, fuck Barnaby, right? Okay, all right, fuck you, dude. Okay, anyway, the video ends with a knock at the door. He opens the door and it's a letter. And the letter is just completely red. He looks at the letter, boom, fade to white, and the video ends. And that was our trophy. And there's a weird noise that plays at the end as well. No, okay, yeah, no, okay, yeah. I don't know, is Frank okay? I doubt it. So to this idea of forgetting, right? My little theory is, what if Frank was actually the one who forgot, not Eddie? Surprisingly enough, I know like in that whole Eddie video, Frank does said like, how can he forget? It's been so long. How can he forget? But based off of everything going on with Frank not being the one to remember things, either the two options are either Eddie did forget, like genuinely forgot, like something made him forget, which may be the thing that is clearly making Frank forget, because we remember Frank is a person for everybody. Like he is friends with literally everybody in town. Well, mostly everybody in town. Him and Barnaby got beef, but like he is mostly friends with everybody in town, right? So like this idea that like maybe he knows a little bit too much of the workings of everyone and what's going on, right? And so him like getting his memory erased every now and then, or forgetting certain things, you know, what if that he forgot that they had agreed upon to like purposely forget? That's the second option. So either Eddie's memory got erased or Eddie is purposely forgetting. Third option, Eddie and Frank made a deal to purposely forget that they have a relationship, at least, you know, on set where people can see, and Frank forgot that. There's a whole thing going on now with memory and Eddie forgetting things and Frank forgetting things, but we know that Frank is forgetting things. Like he has said it himself that he is the one forgetting things. So it's like, is he talking about himself in this situation? Like what's going on? Anyway, that is the end of Eddie's update. So we have no idea what happened to Eddie, what the fuck that red note is. Is it like a you're fired type of note? Is it that we know what you're doing type of note? Is it from the like higher ups, the people running the show or anything like that? I guess we'll have to wait and see to see in the next update. It seems like these updates are going in chronological order. So maybe in the next update, it'll be like a direct follow up to what's happening. Who's next? Very good question. I have not seen Howdy a lot, but like I said in my Poppy video, it just seems like both Barnaby and Howdy are just too valuable to like let them go next, right? Sally, I feel like would be the one after Frank, but I don't think, like I said before, I don't think Sally's going down without a fight. She has like implanted herself. The storybooks are like the newest things we have seen so far. Like they've been the one things that have been like semi-constant in these updates. So Sally planting herself there, like it's going to be really hard to get rid of her. And like I said, I don't think she's going down without a fight. That's if we like continue to go on this like character driven, each update is very character driven type deal, right? Which I think we are, because I think in my last one I said that it seems like every update is going to be very character driven. So anyway, that is the end of Frank's update there. Let me know your thoughts about what you think. We're not done. Don't worry. But I do want to know your thoughts about what you think about Frank's update. Like what you think happened to Frank, like what happened with everybody else, like with Julie and all this stuff. It seems like Julie was leaving at some point, and either she was going to leave or she wasn't going to leave. All these other things, right? Let me know about Wally, all your thoughts down in the comments below. And there's one last thing we need to talk about, which is Awayfrompryingeyes.net. And so this has been the website where W, the person who's been curating this website, has been talking directly, I guess technically directly to us, but whoever's listening, I guess. They don't necessarily know that it exactly is us in the same way that Wally is us. Again, more leading to this idea that, you know, we thought that like, oh, Wally is possessing W, W is possessing Wally, trying to speak to W, yada, yada, yada. Doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Seems to be very two separate entities. W is going crazy. We knew this before. Drinking like 50-year-old soda, probably not a good idea. No. And either the soda has gotten to their head or maybe sleeping on the garage floor with fumes. Who knows why they're going crazy, but they are indeed going crazy. And this is one of them. It was very like, it hit so hard. So this entry that they have is a very long series of entries. I highly suggest you read it. It'll be scrolling on the screen. It's a very long series of entries of which they got a few more things in the mail. One of those being this toy. Right, this toy. And we got like a glimpse of this in the last update. It was in like a picture that was really dark and you had to brighten it 10 million times. And it looked like the Buggle toy that we had seen on the website. So now they have this toy in there and it's a grow a pal toy, meaning that it's supposed to hatch from an egg to this little Buggle nymph looking thing is what they call it. They call it a nymph. Okay, weird thing to call it children's toy, but okay. But it's the Buggle. It looks like a Buggle. And then it is supposed to go from that to a butterfly. However, we do not know what this butterfly looks like because the packaging of this toy has it in shadow for it to be a mystery, yada, yada, yada. So now we know that there is a butterfly. This thing is supposed to turn into some type of butterfly. And what does... I almost said Eddie again. What does Frank mention? Frank mentions that there is a butterfly that he does not remember what it looks like, but he like, it's important. Like he wouldn't say that if it wasn't important. Like he's like, you don't remember what that butterfly looked like either. It seems like whatever this butterfly was, he remembers that it was important because he sees bugs all the time. But whatever this butterfly was important, but he cannot remember what it looks like. Which again leads again to the theory that maybe he saw something he wasn't supposed to see in this butterfly or like whatever, and which caused him to get his memory erased, at least of that specific like instance. So back to this guy. He's like, oh, I want to see what this like looks like for the sake of cataloging purposes. But there's a tool ring that you're supposed to get with the Buggle to like, you know, feed it like baby alive style. You feed it and you grow it and yada, yada, yada. And then when it comes time, you're supposed to be able to take the key part of the key ring and like insert it into a certain part of the Buggle, and then the Buggle turns into a butterfly. This Buggle has been moving around. Every time this person would catch it moving, it would stop, turn towards him, and then just stop moving. So not even like an Andy's home type of situation. It would literally move itself, turn itself towards him or whoever this person is, and then just stop moving. Okay. So yeah, this person's like, I think I'm going crazy. Then on top of that, they think they have a rat problem because something is moving inside of their home, specifically in their garage, and they've been trying to catch it. And also the Buggle keeps going missing. Are you putting two and two together? Yeah, so eventually they do catch the thing in a rat trap. It's the Buggle. And they're like, holy fucking shit, it's the fucking Buggle. I'm going fucking crazy. That thing is alive, yada, yada, yada. Every time it tries to pick it up, this person's hand is like met with searing hot pain, and then is also like comes away like covered in that black like sludge ink ooze that we've been seeing on a lot of the different like toys and memorabilia, right? And so they're like, this thing is alive. What the fuck? What am I supposed to do with this thing? Yada, yada, yada. I don't fucking know. I forgot how it ends. Does he end up killing it? I don't remember if he kills it. Hold on, give me a second. Let me find this out. So in the end, they trap it in their bathroom and they're kind of just waiting for this thing to die. They say very specifically, I think I'm going to wait. If it's really alive, it will stop moving on its own eventually, just like anything else, aka dying. I just need to be patient. The hand I touched it with is covered in that black grime. I can't wash it off. And then what proceeds is a audio of the scratching that they had been hearing this entire time, which is like the Buggle's like plastic eye scratching up against something. You play the audio and there is no scratching sound. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll get an image of their hand that they took a picture of that's supposedly supposed to have black sludge on it. There is no black sludge on their hand. Now we know that this black sludge is real. We have seen pictures of it, or at least we assumedly have seen pictures of it. So the fact that they believe that there is supposed to be some type of black sludge on their hand and there isn't, very concerning to say the least. So either the black sludge doesn't exist at all, and they're going a little like cuckoo in the head, or there's something very specifically is just affecting like themselves, and we just don't see the black sludge yet, but the black sludge is real. So I feel sorry for W. W is going crazy. I don't know exactly what all this means yet. Let me know like your theories down below, because to me it seems like obviously like I said, W is going crazy, but like to more of it really just kind of seems like W, this idea of even going down this restoration project is going to be the point of like, oh, like you're going crazy, and like what's the point? Like why are you so obsessed with like doing this restoration project? Who is, like we talked about the question answerer, like is the question answerer benevolent or horrible? Like who are they? Why are they helping you? They note in their like entries that like, oh, things have been slowing down lately with the like level of stuff that I've been like finding. Why is that? Like why is that happening? I don't know why that's happening. They're not taking care of themselves. They started I told my friend like at the beginning of this, they were like, yeah, so I stopped sleeping in the garage and I started eating again. And even though it's been hard to do, I've been feeling better. And I'm like, wow, it's not sleeping where there are probably a lot of fumes and eating food is making you feel better. Yeah, I bet. And of course, once they stop doing that, they start going crazy again. So look, I'm not saying that like this is all manufactured in their head. I think there is definitely something going on with the memorabilia there, but also at the same time, they also are inflicting this pain onto themselves, I think, a lot of the time. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If you did, you are a real one. I hope this is a shorter one. I've been recording for almost an hour and a half now, so we'll see if that actually ends up being a shorter run in the end. We'll see. Anyway, I just really wanted to talk about this update. I hopefully will get this out within the week of this update going up. But let me know if you enjoyed this update. I thoroughly enjoyed this update. I feel like it was smaller technically. I think the puzzles were easier because I don't know. I had a hard time with the philography puzzles. So I think this update was technically smaller, but I think it was less of that. It was smaller and like more focused. Like it's very clearly focused on Frank this time around, and anything else about like the world building is purely on awayfrompryingeyes.net. And again, the two have not crossed yet. I think they will eventually, but for now, it seems like we're dealing with just like character stuff, which I think Clown has said that like that's what is going to happen with these updates. I think they left a message. Let me see. Let me go to Twitter. I hope this most recent update is a lot of fun to walk through. I hope you see where we're headed a little better too. So anyway, I think that, yeah, it's kind of saying that like they're headed in a lot more of a focused direction. Not that it wasn't focused before, but we can see kind of better where everything is headed, right? Like of this, like we're going to go through every character is going to get their little moment. We're going to see through that the world building of this world, and it'll all come to a head probably with Wally and home, and from there whatever's happening to W is gonna also come to a head there. The two paths will cross. Hopefully we can get some type of happy ending for these folks. Who knows? Anyway, let me know how you felt about all of this down in the comments below. And, you know, I forgot the Patreon shout out the last time. I like said it and then totally forgot to put it in. That video was long and dense. I'm sorry. Anyway, here are my Patreon shout outs now. Remember to do them, Allie. Damn. At our average yapper tier, we have Venti, Mushi, Random Corner, Gray P, Adrian N, Soup, Mysterious Trumpet, Yosef, Broken Dreamy, Luna L, AC, Leela L, Gianna M, Jester, Mal G, Vivian M, Basil, Aaron. At our average yapper tier, we have Scout, Furby Bunny, Arapaima S, Twilby, Alyssa B. At our big time yapper tier, we have Covalence and Tybee. Thank you. And thank you so much for watching. And hey, I will see you in the next episode, probably about the FNAF movie. Love and peace.